Good morning, Starlight Gazers. Just left Angkor Lamut in Malaysia and heading north to Penang for tonight and then on to Langkawi tomorrow. Don't know how much you'll make out on the GoPro here, but I'm just flipping around the edge of a fishing fleet here that's laying nets, drift nets. This guy's picking up one of his buoys. As near as I can tell, these ones are not surface nets, so they go down a little bit. It probably would have been safe to pass through the middle, but there is boats everywhere, nets everywhere. So altered course about probably 20 degrees when I first saw the obstruction, and now I'm going around, I think, the outside, the western edge of it, just to save myself a heap of hassle. Anyway, yeah, these guys have got it on board now. I'll start pulling that net in, I guess. I don't know how anything survives out here. There's just so much netting. It's incredible to think that there might even be a fish left. Hard to imagine. I'm on the last 10 miles approach now to Penang up in here. I'm going to anchor just inside here. The Navionics chart shows there's a couple of boats that managed to anchor in there. One of them says there's 4 meters of water, even though the chart says there isn't. I actually believe someone who's been there rather than the charts around here, so I'm going to go and have a look. Should be there before dark, well and truly, I would think, so that's pretty good. I had a good day. And that's Penang there in the distance. Where I'm going to go and anchor, it looks like there's no infrastructure there at all, so that's kind of nice. Hopefully you get a nice calm night. The forecast is showing that it'll be northerly breeze through the night, probably less than 10 knots. So where I'm anchoring should give me a really good little shelter spot. As I approach the southern end of Penang Island, southwestern tip of the main island, Penang, I'm just sort of approaching this little anchorage up in here, where apparently off this point there's about 4 meters of water, according to Navionics, where vessel's been before. While I do that, I keep my Navionics on a chart plotter here, on a tablet I mean, which can show me so that I can line up on that exact spot. And just looking here, I can see it's SV Tavulu who made the report, and he reckons 4 meters sand, good holding, nice spot. Well, you know, you've got to go and check it yourself, but so far my experience has been that people have been pretty reliable with their reports. So I'm pretty confident I'll find, close to 4 meters in that position. And I've really got a beautiful little anchorage here. Really nice little spot, really nice little spot. It's actually a little coconut palm beach over there too. I hope this is, indicative of what's to come from Langkawi and even further north into Thailand, into Phuket. So, read them and weep, people. So, a story to tell. Got kicked out of that anchorage by a fisherman who absolutely insisted that that bay belonged to him and his nets, and that no one could anchor there anyway. Cut a long story short, he was very aggressive, and yeah, I thought it better just to move. So I've come into the channel here between Penang and Butterworth. That's basically between the island and the mainland, and I'm just about to pass under this large bridge here. I don't know if you can see that. It's a 28 metre clearance. I got a 18 metres of mast, so I should have 10 metres to spare, which is plenty. Then I'm going to go and anchor behind Little Island to the left in amongst all those lights. Navionics tells me that I'm likely to get kicked out of there by the maritime officials, so I don't really know where else to go. But I'm going to go there anyway until they do kick me out, or if they don't, well, maybe I'll get a night's sleep. Can't really do any more than that. I'm going to go underneath the bridge up into here and anchor right about there, and wait to get kicked out. I don't know. So we're passing underneath the bridge. it turned out we had clearance. It's very difficult to tell how much. I mean, the map says that I had 10 metres to spare at least, but it didn't look like that. So that's why I ditched the camera at the last minute, so I could concentrate on the boat if something went wrong. Good morning, Starlight lurkers. So yeah, last night was quite challenging. Fill you in on that in a sec, but I've just left Penang, and I picked sort of daybreak to leave this morning just to make life a little bit easier for myself. And I just got a guy laying a net sort of pretty much right in front of me. Looks like it's going to miss. That's all right. Yeah, so heading up to Langkawi today, distance of about 70 nautical miles, about 55 to go. And you can see Penang. That's the northern coast of Penang there, going down into the channel between Butterworth, or the mainland, and Penang. There's there's a few warnings about anchoring there in the dark because of unlit vessels, junks, all this kind of stuff. But to be honest, I actually found it fairly straightforward. Although the lights don't match the charts themselves were accurate and got me in, anchored, and the vessels that were there were lit, and all three were running AIS at the time. So yeah, I guess I just picked the right time to go in, I guess. It's anchored about, well, by the time it was done and I was ready to go to bed, it's probably about 1 o'clock in the morning. All because some selfish bloody fisherman decided he wanted to net exactly where my boat was. And he was really aggressive. He went straight to 100 when he just came screaming at the boat and telling me to F off and all this sort of stuff. Really, really highly aggressive. Although I could have stood my ground, because ultimately it's his nets, he can destroy them on my boat if he wants to. You know, in the middle of the night he comes and slashes the dinghy or something like that, or cuts the lines, or who knows. It's just better off just to suck it up and move on. So that's what I did. So I left that anchorage around about 8:30 last night, and by the time I got anchored I had to pass under 2 big bridges. Lots and lots of vessel traffic, lots of city lights, but fairly straightforward as long as you follow the rules, so that was good. Anyway, so that was last night, and I'm absolutely smashed now. I won't get to Langkawi until after dark tonight, and it looks like motor sailing yet again, or probably motoring. The forecast is for 10 to 15 knots from the northeast. I'm getting about 5 to 10, so I'm hopeful maybe I can pick up just a few more knots of wind and get some sailing in. You wouldn't read about it, but maybe all that whinging and whining this morning has done some good, because I've actually got some wind. Wow. Probably the first sailing breeze I've had in weeks here in Malaysia. Yeah, easily weeks. So I'm getting about 13 knots out of the east-northeast, and I'm heading in a nor-northwest direction, so I'm getting it at about 60 degrees off my starboard side. Got the full main, full heady out, and pushing along at about 6 knots over the ground. Probably going a little bit faster than that through the water, but she got dirty bum, this poor girl. She needs a clean. It's just not in the budget right now. It's going to have to wait a couple of months. But I can feel it. She's definitely not slipping through the water like she should. Look at the tropical rain band bearing down on me. Just tucked a reef in the main just in case. I don't know how much wind it's going to pack, if any at all. But I just put reef in the main just to reduce that pressure should it be a bit of wind. Looks like it could pack a bit. That's it over there, and it does seem to be heading this way. It's got rain band in front of it, so who knows how much it's going to thump. But around about now, the first thing I do is put a reef in so that I'm prepared. And the second thing, I'd make a plan. You know, if a wall of wind comes at me, what am I going to do? So my plan is to bear downwind straight away and shadow the headsail with the mainsail, and fill some of that up, and then come back on course, and I'll have a reefed main and a reefed headsail. might be a bit more on the front of this. Very difficult to tell, but I'm set up to reef that headsail if I need to. And I've just spilled the wind out of the main. I can see a line on the water a little bit darker, so that could be where the real wind is. I might just leave that main spilled at the moment. I've got the first reef in the main, but it's not drawing, so it's not creating any pressure. If I do decide to bear away, it'll fill up and it'll shadow the headsail so that I can then use the furling line to furl up the headsail. But at the moment we're still around that 18 knot mark, so it's alright. I can carry that full headsail in probably 20, you know, without really working too hard. But once it's above 20, that full headsail is just too much for her. Just heels her over and she doesn't go any quicker. When I reef it, she actually stands up a bit and she actually goes faster. Around that 18 knot mark. I don't think we're likely to see more than sort of 20, 22 in this one. And it's producing 7.8 knots. That's nice. I'm trying to get into Langkawi, into the marina there before dark. On a 5 or 6 knot average coming from Penang, it really wasn't doable. But since 10 o'clock this morning, I've been doing well in the 7s, sometimes 8, 8.5. It's now 2:30, so probably an hour and a half to the bottom end of there, plus another 2, so 3 hours. So looking around about 5:30 p.m. arrival, and dark here is about 7 p.m. is when sunset is. So I might beat it by about an hour and a half if I'm really lucky. That'd be great, be able to go into the marina with daylight and not going in the dark, because I haven't been to this marina before. See a little bit more wind on the top of the water here. He's not quite done with us yet. Another little line squall coming at us. But I think we weren't on the leading edge of this, I think we were right on the edge. So we didn't get the full punch. Again, the wind is still only around that 17, 18 knot mark, so it's good sailing really. As I get up closer to Langkawi, that little group of islands over the next sort of hour, I'm going to move into smoother and smoother water as I get behind the islands there. And that's when the sailing gets really good. Super fast, flat water, Starlight will just take a bite, chew. Yeah, she loves it, almost as much as I do. Doing 8.1 knots at the moment, we've got 16 knots of wind. Probably ease that headsail out a bit now too, wind angle changed a bit. Get a little bit more belly in it. It'll take off a little bit of the weather helm, but also increase our speed. So we're just climbing into the mid-8s at the moment. And a little bit more wind coming. See on the water there, here it comes. Not too much. I don't think we'll see more than 22 knots here. It's just touching 20 now. We're doing 8.5 knots. She's doing it easy. The helm is over about, I don't know, an eighth of a turn for the weather helm that she's got, which really is about ideal. It's okay to have a little bit of weather helm, just not too much. So quite happy with where she's sitting. There's a bit more wind. It's up around that 21, 22 knots. Kind of what I was thinking we might get. But she's snugged down nicely for this. Again, still not too much weather helm. It's really, that's a good judge as to whether or not you're carrying too much sail, is how much the helm needs to stay over to keep her straight. Now, quarter of a turn is quite acceptable, and she's in that 1/8 to a quarter of a turn, and we're doing 8.8 knots. Wind is just under 20 knots again. So really it's just a great ride. Take me to where I want to go sooner. more, that's in the 22s, climbing up to 23. The starlight's got a quarter of a turn on. Again, still within acceptable limits. We're making 9 knots now. I don't know if you can even hear me, but anyway. It's 23, 24 knots. The wind was doing 9.1. It looks like we're about to get a little bit of the rain. So this rain band did not miss us. It looks like it's now got us. That's 25, 26 knots. It's just before the rain. I think it's time to fill up into this headsail, so I'm busy now, guys. There we go, there she goes. Right. So just turn it downwind. Immediately takes all the pressure and all the stress off the boat and makes things quiet. Just put the autopilot on to keep my head downwind for me. And then while it's doing that, you ease off on the pencil sheet and hit the furler. But because the mainsail is shadowing the headsail, there's very little pressure in the headsail itself. That'll do. So I've taken that into about 70% of her original size. Just close that. And then get her back on course. And so now I've got about 70% of the head sail, and I've got a reef in the main, and we're fully rigged down for 25, 26 knots. A little bit gloomy, but this is the island's southern end of the Langkawi group, and it's really quite pretty. It's very steep. I can see, you won't see it on the GoPro, but way over there there's 3 yachts anchored in a really nice little spot. Actually, I'm looking forward to exploring this place. This could be just what I was looking for, all of Malaysia. Hopefully it gets like this all the way up Thailand and all the way up there. So yeah, quite excited about this, especially after seeing that anchorage. I mean, that's sheltered from almost 270 degrees in there, by the look of it. Yeah, ooh, exciting. Langkawi. I'll see the big island shortly, once I get around these little ones. So I'm doing the final approach into Talaga Marina here. I'm going to come right up here, turn downwind and ditch some sail. Right up hard on the wind right now. Got about 16, 17, reaching 20 knots there. Fine at about 30-35 degrees. So I've got the headsail up really hard and the mainsail pretty hard too. And crack into windward here, making a good 7 knots over the ground. Nice. And then I'll get the guys to come out and help me tie up in the marina because I'm alone. It's a bit easier to have somebody catch the lines.